Welcome to Strength Chat Podcast, presented by Kabuki Strength. Introducing your hosts, Chris Duffin, the mad scientist of strength, Rudy Kadlub, mature athlete and coach, and the wizard of training himself, Brandon Sen.
Welcome to Strength Chat with your host, the mad scientist of strength, Chris Duffin. To my right, I am missing my wingman today. There is no Dr. Rudolph. We have the yet-to-be-named Kabuki Strength's Brady Cable. To my left, we've got the wizard of training, Brandon Sen. He always gets nervous on the introduction.
The wizard. Yeah.
That's right. And today, really excited to have Brad Cox of Acumobility with us. So anybody that follows my YouTube has probably seen a bunch of videos where Brad and I have collaborated. He's the CEO of Acumobility, and those that are watching it on YouTube, you can see we've got a few of his products here on the table because we are a big fan and supporter of the work, and we've collaborated quite a bit. He's, I consider the East Coast version of us because they a lot of very similar concepts on how to deploy mobility training, the tools that we use, and how it integrates with training. So welcome, Brad.
It's good to be here. It's good to be talking to you guys. I miss you guys. It's been a little while. So.
It has been. So let's just start with a little bit of introduction about yourself and how you got started on this path.
Sure. So Acumobility was founded by me and my partner, Dr. Sonia Pasquale, and we run a sports medicine clinic here in Boston where we pretty much exclusively treat elite and professional athletes. And we've run the clinic for the last 7 years, with a huge focus on strength athletes. And over that time, we kept developing more and more kind of emphasis on corrective work, right? And we had this concept which we call active mobilization, which is the idea that you don't want to just passively kind of like mobilize muscles. We want to actively retrain both the stability and the mobility at the same time to improve positioning and improve performance, right? And so that concept kind of, we started using lacrosse balls and foam rollers and things that were out there in the market. And we realized that there was a huge failure of the ability for those tools to do what we needed for the sort of dynamic movements that we were putting people through. And so Sonia had this idea and it was a simple idea. We were doing this single ball back release. And she thought, God, what if this thing didn't roll, right? And so this simple concept of essentially a ball that doesn't roll is what started us down the product road. And what's crazy is that nobody had ever created anything like it. So we've got 2 utility patents on the entire concept of a ball with a stable base, such that this guy, right, to use it as trigger point release, active mobilization. You can use it dynamically a bunch of different ways against the wall, on the ground, handheld, right? We want to make one dynamic tool that you use a lot of different ways, right? And so that's kind of what started. And then along that journey, about halfway through the development process of that, we had this idea for like revolutionizing what a foam roller could be. And that's when we created the Eclipse roller. And this is, we got 2 utility patents on that as well. And the idea of the Eclipse roller is the only roller in the world that wraps around tissue. So you can hit multiple muscles at once. And as you roll, it literally squeezes and releases you. So you can use it for targeted trigger point release and, a broad flushing, increased shear force, right? So that's kind of where we started, but we don't consider ourselves a product company, as you know. We're all about the education. And the only reason we made products is because we saw that there was just a failure of products to do what we needed and what our athletes needed. And that's where we came from.
Yeah, and that's kind of gets back to why I was referring you to as our, kind of our East Coast brother, because we're the same way. We feel that we're an education company, and we've created products that fit how we're trying to educate people to prepare themselves for movement and move. And it's interesting that you're employing, and this is why we love your stuff so much, is employing those active mobilization strategies along with a lot of like shearing force. So you didn't bring up, but the Acumobility balls actually will grab the tissue if you want to use them, and you could pin and squeeze, and the same thing. You did bring that up with the roller, but this is the type of stuff that we found, like just like beating tissue up the way that people typically do with a big roller isn't as, it works, but it's not nearly as effective, nearly as efficient. And thought it was interesting that we arrived at some of the same conclusions. Even you and I noted, like, our boomstick radius and we did a lot of trial and error to figure out what our radius was, and you did some research, and we both ended up with exactly the same radius on your patented ball is the same one we have on our boomstick. So
I know, it was crazy when we discovered that. We were like holding them up and we're like, holy shit. That's
what exactly is your radius? And I said mine. And
what's
that's
your radius?
Exactly what my
classic mobility pickup line.
Like, what's your radius? Yeah, exactly. And that's I remember when we met up at the Arnold's, and within like 2 minutes we started talking, and we were like, oh my God, we're literally talking the same language here about trying to fix problems, right, in really novel, unique ways that, to try to move the whole field forward, right, where we really get to it and not just, basically foam roll or spend all this time just on lacrosse balls ineffectually. We're like, God, how do we program that? How do we get in there to really change function and position to improve your workout, right? 10 minutes or less. And that was the same exact thing you guys are doing, and that's why I love your tools. I think the partnership has just been, awesome.
I love that 10 minutes or less. I think I'm sure you've seen my. I listed mine as single minute, so I've dropped it to 9 minutes, so we can say it's in the single, not two digits, but 1 digit. So so it's 9 minutes or less now. So I guess you could go to 9 minutes and 59 seconds and still meet our philosophy, but
next we're going to create a suit that you walk in and it's 1 minute. It just
squeezes your whole body.
You're done. That's it.
Yep. Now, another thing you mentioned, and it just you just briefly hit it, and I'll bet you most people didn't hear it, but it was about patterning both mobility and stability together. And that is huge. I'm going to repeat that, patterning both mobility and stability together, because this is like a pet peeve of mine. Like, people are often say, oh, Chris Duffin's the mobility guy. And I'm like, please show me some video. Or I asked, even I have a new member of the gym. He's been training with us for 4 months. And, I was showing him some stuff, and he's like, yeah, I should be working on this mobility stuff. I'm like, we're not doing any, actually, have you ever seen me do a traditional stretch? He's like, no. Never. And I'm like, it's not that I have anything against, we are mobilizing, but a lot of times mobility gets confused with stretching. And so then you get this oh, you're the mobility guy, you're the stretching guy. And that's just that's why I promote actually so much of my content is on the stability side, because there is so much education on the mobilization strategies. And our friend Kelly Starrett has done a tremendous job at creating extensive resources on that side of it. And that's where I'm trying to focus our content on the stabilizing. And you're doing what I consider best, which is both, how do you combine those two together? And we actually do that in the work that we do, and we've collaborated on, right, with our Vice technique.
Oh yeah, every time we broke somebody out, we repatterned them. The idea was that we found the problem, right, that was going to affect their lift or their function that day, right? Identified it, quick assessments, and then what did we do, right? We got in there, cleaned up some of the tissue stuff, but even while we were doing that, we were actively patterning the nervous system, prepping it for the movement pattern they were going to go into. And I think that's, that's one of the things that's missing a lot in the conversation right now. People are spending a lot of time rolling, without patterning.
Exactly. So, and you're not teaching the body what it's going to be doing with that.
Right.
And,
so why does the nervous system have any, clue how that's going to help what's going to come next, Meanwhile, when we're releasing the thoracic, right, we're already patterning glute activation, diaphragmatic activation, hip extension, right, while mashing out that tissue restriction. So the moment they get up, and that takes a minute, right? The moment you get up, you've already woken up the nervous system, protected the spine, told everything to prepare itself for that overhead position.
Yep.
And
that's why
that's pretty much the whole goal.
Yeah, that's why I like to term the stuff that we do movement preparation.
Exactly.
That's really what we're doing. We're using different strategies, pulling it all together. We're not, saying pre-workout mobility. This is, movement preparation is key, and you've got to integrate those stability and mobility mechanisms together. As the requirements for one increases, the requirements for the other increases, and that's where you've got to put those two together. Had some good discussions with Dr. Stuart McGill on the same subject.
Oh yeah. So, I watched that. That was fantastic.
Everybody thinks he's the stability guy. you can't be moving, you can't be flexing the spine, and that's not what he says. But you know, a lot of people take that the wrong direction, and yeah, it's just if you get to the nuts and bolts of it, he has the same exact belief of what we're trying to promote.
Yeah, talking about the movement prep and considering it movement prep instead of, maybe mobility work, a lot of people don't realize really how hard you have to work at doing this as prep work. And that's part of the reason we can get away with doing, the single minute exercise prep or 10 minutes or less exercise prep. It's because you're really working hard to do this. And I think that's one of the big things that people take away from the KMS seminars who've maybe seen our stuff before, is they actually, they get a sweat going, and they have to really work through some of these different drills. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people can take away from this discussion on mobility versus actual prep work.
Yeah, it's one thing to do a dead bug, but it's a whole different thing to do a dead bug with a high degree of intent.
Yeah.
Exactly, right?
So a question
and that's even the idea, how we incorporate the fascial tensioning into release stuff, right? It's work, you have to really be, engaging that nervous system, really telling it like, hey, there's intent involved in this, right? This thing shouldn't be doing this. This guy should. Let's get that woken up. Let's release this crap. And then let's prepare it for load, right? Because we all know load is a lot of work, right? But for some reason, we don't fully appreciate how much work it is, like, to get that nervous system, like, ready to, like, handle that load.
Yeah, we actually.
So I think that's one of the, main goals.
We actually just got a question today about how we at Kabuki Strength use mobility, especially pre-workout and stuff. And I had to explain that we use it as needed to improve positions, but at the same time, we're also training the nervous system to be prepared for that load and that activity.
This is
that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just brought up like a really important point, is like that mental and nervous system preparation. And Stu's hit on this several times, either in discussions that have been recorded or just personal discussions we've had, because he absolutely loves this right here. The squat face. He's like, that is brilliant. That's brilliant, because that's what you have. You have to have the intent. You've got to get it fired up, and which is the purpose behind our logo. There is like, that's what you've got to bring. We'll bring the tools and the education, but you've got to put the intent in. You've got to put the work in. So, question for you, because I understand that you're programming for a lot of gyms as far as the the mobility strategies. Like, talk us through the process of how you program for them, and then how do you get some of those sorts of concepts through?
So that's our number one goal going forward, right? Is to teach people how to program this stuff effectively for either their client or themselves, right? As related to what they're doing in that workout, right? And it's a tall order, because there's a lot of moving pieces. You got to break down categories from, are we talking about the injured population, or are we just talking about performance here, right? And we like to separate those two in many ways, because, the idea of doing 10 minutes or less of like real active prep work, really that applies to people who are trying to optimize position, optimize performance, right? That's not necessarily true for the guy who's like hurt himself, right? We got a different category of guys. So we think about that differently in terms of how we're trying to spread this education, right? We got kind of like the clinician level thing, and we're going to put out a whole program, lots of content and material for them, right? How do you fix pain? How do you fix problems, right? And then we got guys who are, under load, who are athletes who are training, and those are actually one of the, I believe the most neglected populations in terms of understanding of this, right? Same thing with you guys, right? And so what we're doing is we are going to build an enormous online certification and portal, right? Hopefully it'll come out early next year, or maybe in the spring, that has resources that are specifically like squat, deadlift, press. Like here's all these things that maybe you're working on that day, and here's some strategies for targeting in 10 minutes or less what you need to improve position for that, right? Because we realize there's a rabbit hole that you can go down, where you're trying to teach everybody every assessment in the world, everybody every correction, right? Very few people are ever going to really implement that effectively. So instead, our strategy is to really take, the end stage movement patterns that you're striving for, right? And teach strategies for improving position for that, right? Same goal you guys have. And we are going to implement that on a gym level, coaching level, right? We're building affiliate relationships, building partnerships with all these different groups, right? like Alloy, Rick Mayo and Alloy. We're talking to Cressy, Tony Genticore, all these great, amazing guys, right? Who are educators. And our goal is to really build relationships where we can all help spread that message, just like you and I have been doing, right? And I think that's going to be our key for the next year going forward. Because to date, we haven't actually put out a lot of that. We put out basic stuff. Hey, here's how you mobilize a specific body part, or you and I showing videos like how did we fix a problem, right? But we want to make it such that there's like clear progressions for people to follow, and a context for them to be able to really incorporate that. So stay tuned, because that's where we're going with all this stuff, is bringing that to the coaching level for that piece.
Excellent. That sounds like a pretty exciting project.
Yeah,
quite a little bit involved. So I think you got some fair bit of work coming up for you.
Just a little bit. We looked at it. Sonny and I were talking last night. We were like, okay, we got to lay out all the pieces, right? And the list just kept going and going and going. And we're like, this is literally going to be hundreds of hours of content by the time we put this out. But that's going to be a treasure trove that hopefully is going to be very easy to navigate, right? And then, as I said, by collaborating with people, building relationships, things like that, we're hoping to like spread that, directly to the people on the front lines, which are strength coaches and trainers and people like that.
Absolutely.
That's our goal.
Yeah. And I know your approach too. It's, we're not trying to, take the job of the massage therapist, the physical therapist.
No.
But like, Kelly has a great analogy, like, oh, hey, I've got this tight quad, and it's causing a little bit of knee pain. Well, maybe I should try actually, relieving the tension in it myself, or have my partner do it before actually needing, actually pushing it to where I've got some trauma and actually I need clinical help, right? It's like,
what a novel concept.
It's not complicated, right? But then when we go, we expect more of our, because we've taken care of some of the easy stuff. Like, when we go in, we're going to expect more of the people that we work with. So
right, and that goes to the other thing, right? So we even have to talk about educating two different populations. I'm a clinician. My wife, Dr. Sunny Pasquale, like, we're clinicians, right? What do? We treat this stuff in the clinic, right? So we're going to talk to them too, and have programs that kind of gets into that level, because they're working on a different level, right? And I think you just have to talk to both kind of classes and both groups, and you have to talk to them slightly differently, because clearly they have different capacities. So.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting that you mentioned the separation of the two populations and how the performance side is generally neglected with this stuff. And it's when they are neglecting these sorts of things and they're missing basic joint ranges of motion, they're not stabilizing properly in certain positions, that they end up working their way into that injured population, and then they start to address it. But if we can head that off before performance, then they end up never needing to be fixed on the injured side in the first place.
And that's why I like to talk about who's on the front lines, right? Like who sees this stuff day to day, right? By the time you're going to a clinician, you're already jacked up, right? Like that's already happened. Who sees it? It's the coaches. It's the strength guys, right? I mean, I remember Kelly was talking about this when he was on, right? Those are the people who need to really like understand that even better, because they're who actually sees everybody who are trying to put themselves into these positions, who are actually under load. And I think that's why in many ways, like, getting that message through to that group is critical. I believe, we all need to be talking about this. You, us, Kelly, like all these guys, right? It's the same message. It's the same goal. And if you look at like the obstacles in front of us, they're pretty intense. Like this is going to be a lot of work from a lot of people to really kind of just keep moving the field forward and helping spread that education and get past this kind of like, people are wasting a lot of time in their prep work. People are wasting a lot of time in terms of how they're approaching these problems. And we're like, hey, guys, trust me, like there's a better way to do this, right?
I'm telling you.
It involves activation. Sorry, what were you saying?
Just like, it's so frustrating to walk into a gym and see people rolling around for like 45 minutes, laying on the floor, getting this roller. And it's just like, and you can just see them, and like it's almost nap time, right? That's not movement preparation, and they're spending a lot of time doing it. Sometimes an hour, Exactly.
You're like, what are you doing?
there's a reason. Why did you come to the gym? You came to the gym
Right.
to get in shape or get stronger.
Right.
The sooner you can get doing that, the better you are towards your goal. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure like how there was a big shift, because it's, again, in the past it was, the message always was just work through the pain. This is just what we.
Oh yeah.
Totally the wrong.
Yeah.
Like, we do not support that approach at all, right? And that's where like the past of like strength training was, but then the pendulum swung, and as usual,
Totally.
it swings too far. And,
Delicate butterfly that has, you can't do anything, right? Except for
exactly.
roll. And it's like, what?
And that just puts it, even from a psychology standpoint, in the wrong headspace for going to go hit heavy lifts afterwards.
Exactly. People think, and clearly our company's called Acumobility, right? And so they think, right, that we're going to be huge proponents of just roll everything all the time, like that's going to be our message. And they're always surprised when it's not, when we're like, no, guys, like, that's not the takeaway from this. I don't want you just lying there breathing into this for 45 minutes.
Yep.
It goes back to what we're saying. And they're always like shocked and like it's refreshing. They go, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting you to say that. And we're like, we want change. That's all we want. I want you to make change as effectively and quickly as possible.
I was I presented at the Swiss Symposium like a week and a half ago.
Oh yeah, that
up
looks like fun.
In Toronto. It was fun. You've got to.
Next year, we got to get.
It'll be in 2 years. You've got to be there. So you got to come with me. It's going to be a blast.
Done.
But we had a table set up and had the boomsticks, pain pills on there. And I can't tell you how many times somebody walked up to the table and asked me, "So, how much time do you spend every day using these?" And I said, "Well, I don't use them every day." They're like, "What? What?"
Right.
But why wouldn't you? I'm like, well, no, I don't need to every day. I use it when I need to, and it is an extremely effective tool. But it might
when I need to use it.
Exactly. If I don't need to use it, I just go straight to training.
Effective.
So
I agree that you don't need to use it every day.
Exactly. If Brady's with his deep voice over there is like, it's so effective that you don't need to use it every day, right?
Right. That's the goal, right? That thing should change, right? Yeah. That's that spot you're working out. Like, if you have to keep working that every day, you're doing something wrong.
Especially with proper loading afterwards, because you're going to be making change that way too.
Yeah,
totally.
That's a big thing I've hit home, I think, in a bunch of different articles. Like, if you're having to do the same thing like every day, every week, there's something wrong. And
there is a problem there.
Yep.
Well, and that's interesting though, right? Because to that point, that also gets to the lifestyle factors that come into play, right? Because what would be another reason why somebody would have to keep mobilizing that thing all the time, right? It would be because they sit at a freaking desk 50 hours a week, right? Like, I mean, our entire population, we're set up for failure here with movements, all right? And then, so in that case, I do understand, why that dude's traps are always tight and why he's going to have to do our thoracic release all the time, right? But my point is that, like, that's telling you something, right? That there's a fundamental failure in lifestyle that you're just trying to patch all the time. And, I mean, ultimately, where's that going to get you, You
got to go back to the activity that's driving it, be it your lifestyle, your poor training, your overload of training. Like, there is something that's making you have to do that all the time.
Right. Yeah. And we recognize, there's a lot of obstacles for people in this world, right? Like, there's a lot of obstacles that prevent them from moving correctly, I mean, from stress to position to driving, like all those things, right? And I mean, we even put out like an At Your Desk series, right? The fact that we even had to do that is telling of the society that we're in, right? Mm-hmm. That we recognize, like, dude, yeah, if you're using a mouse all the time, you're probably gonna need to actually do tissue work on your forearm at your desk. Is that ridiculous? Yes. We were never designed to do this, right? Like that's not the world we should be in. Yep. But is that our world? Unfortunately, and I think that's where the conversation gets really tough.
This is I'm thinking out loud here, but thinking of collaboration and stuff. It's something that's been on the back of my mind for a long time. Is we need to take what we're doing into the workplace industrial setting.
Oh God, yeah.
I had a clinician come up who was actually working in that environment at the Swiss and talking at the table, and I just forgot how much, because that's my past history, is
Right,
working in
yeah.
that environment.
Corporate work.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm running these companies and people, come up with issues. I can't say, here's how I would go about it. I'd have to say, yeah, you need to go to the doctor, even though I'm like, oh my God, like, I just want to show you like how to manage this. But if I did that,
Bro, do
I'd
you
be,
even squat?
I would be in really bad trouble. But that's something we may want to think about, because I know you're going out with the educational side and developing the programming for gyms, clinicians, that sort of stuff. But I think that there's a huge value in coming out with like some sort of OSHA approved approach.
And get it in through
big,
HR and get a training sort of program.
Exactly,
because,
how big that could be and how many people that could affect.
Pretty much, 3/4 of the population.
At least your athletes, like they are looking for something, right?
Right.
Your other person, all they know is, oh, my back hurts, my upper back hurts, and they're pressing this button out here all the time, every day, and
they don't even connect
we just need to grab a little band and do a little scapular retraction drill for a couple times a day, and all of a sudden you're beautiful. I mean, like
an anecdotal example of that, I was in a plating shop the other day, and one of the employees was wearing this flimsy weight belt that covered his whole abdomen, and I wanted to ask him if his back hurt, but I watched every time he'd go to pick something up, he would round his back and lift entirely with his back.
You're like, I know your back hurts.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even need to ask. It was I just knew.
That's not even a question, right? Yeah.
But that's a great example, Brady.
He's got this giant Band-Aid on him that's not actually helping him at all, but I'm sure his doctor probably said, oh, we should try a weight belt. It might help your back.
Right. But never actually looked at how he's moving.
And even if he did, probably isn't even trained to assess it.
Yep.
You know? And that's part of that's the other problem.
Coaches for and things like that.
So anyway, just thinking out loud, but that could be a fun, really interesting project. So.
Well, I love it that you said that, right? Because literally, Sonia and I were talking, I don't know, last week about that problem, right? And we're like, we're talking a lot to coaches, we're talking to clinicians, right? In many ways, that's low-hanging fruit, right? In the sense that they're ready for that message, they're already working in the space, and they need it, right? And so we know, like, it's easy to deliver the message to them. It's still a tall order, right, to spread that info. But you're right, the bigger population, right, that you need to get to them too. And the only place to really do that is in the setting that's jacking them up. And what is that setting? It's their workplace.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think it's something that really needs to be addressed. And
it's where
I don't think there's enough people doing it.
It's where people spend most of their life.
Right. Yeah, when you add
so
that in the car.
You're talking about lifestyle. Yep, that in the car. Yep.
That in the car. You add those things up, and you spend most of your life at your desk in your car. That's insane.
I'm telling you,
so we need to help that.
I am so looking forward to the fully autonomous driving, where I don't have to sit there and use my hip flexor on the gas pedal and the brake.
Totally.
I'm serious though. Like,
oh no, I know.
How many issues do we have on the right side because of because of issues related to that?
And especially with athletes, let's take athletes for example, right? Who keep complaining about right TFL, right hip, right low back issues, right? In their deadlift, in their squat, you do all the right prep work, you mobilize it, you cue them, you do all this stuff, and it keeps coming back, right? And then you're like, how many hours do you drive a week? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I drive half an hour, 45 minutes to work each way. You know, you're not going to win. Like we're not going to win against that, you know, because it's like that position is just so detrimental so quickly to the nervous system, to your stability. We came up with like little hacks for that, right? And one of my favorite little hacks for the driver is you can use a yoga block for this. You can use a rolled up towel. You can use a water bottle, right? But it's to put something between your thigh and the right console, right? And the reason for that is because everybody's leg rolls out like this, right? And then they're moving the gas pedal like this, right? Well, to actively bring it back in line, people lose that within a minute. So I'm like, okay, this is a bad position. Just put something there, line yourself up. Now, at least you're in plane, right? And not slouching into this sort of position, right? Every time you get in the car. And we find that actually helps a lot.
That would help someone like with Brandon with like skinny legs because he doesn't squat. But I don't have a problem because my legs touch the console already.
Says a guy who didn't squat for 9 months.
Even though I haven't squatted for 9 months, my legs
are so big.
My legs still dwarf it.
I don't even have to squat. My legs are so big.
Actually, that's
we're just joking. Brandon got trolled on the internet last night. Not badly, but just because it's him, it makes it quite funny. So So I just
Oh,
have to reinforce
I
that.
think that
so.
means that I've actually done something well in the fitness industry. Yeah. I've made it.
Brilliant.
Yes, you have had memes about you too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You got to have at least one meme.
Yeah, if
you
somebody
Otherwise,
else is
what are you doing?
somebody
Yeah,
else,
right.
if nobody's made a meme about you, like
You're
you're
trash.
you're nobody. So
Yeah, it's not even
Yeah.
it's not even worth it.
so I'm gonna make a meme of Brad with like a bunch of coffee because I know he's all jacked up on
Just
caffeine right now.
Way too much coffee. Every
Was it-
time we filmed, I just needed. I mean, you know how exhausting this stuff is, right? To film for. I mean, what do we shoot? Like 8 hours of film in like one day.
Yeah,
You know, when we
yeah,
were down there, I think I don't know how many cups of coffee I had to go
yeah.
through.
We're
but,
cranking
we
through
were
the
dialed
coffee,
in.
and then
for a whole lot.
then after lunch, I'm like, Brad, I'm sorry to do this, man, but I got to lay down on this couch and nap. And you're like, oh man,
Oh,
that's
thank
awesome.
God I
And
did
he
too.
Brad jumped on the other couch and took a nap too. I'm like, you're all right, Brad.
Right in here.
People are walking by us. We're just in your lobby, just like passed out, completely comatose. Oh yeah, that was a good hour nap too.
It was
Like,
it was a good one. Yeah, yeah. And I think we got
Wake
up and drank some more caffeine and shot some more videos.
and we got
so,
back to it. you
Yeah.
know, we got it done.
Yeah.
I mean, we had 2 days, and we shot just an insane amount of film.
Oh, it was freaking fun. It was hilarious. I remember like because we just got up there and we were riffing and like some of the videos, people were like, wow, that's amazing how you had all that sequence. It was like this 45
We were
minutes of you and me back and forth, like working an issue, like all detailed, and like we had nothing of it planned. We just grabbed Brady, I think, and we're like, Brady, what you got going on?
That was literally the beginning of that, right? And I
Yeah.
remember you and I were like, God, let's shoot something where we can like fix the problem. You're like, yeah, all right, Brady, get up here. What's going on? And like planned nothing, right? And
Yeah.
I think we switched up our left and right like once,
Yeah.
and that was it. And we look back and we're like, that was 45 minutes, and we just like broke apart everything.
Yep.
And people would think that was scripted. They would think like, oh, we went into that knowing we're gonna do this, then that.
No,
And we're like, no.
Yeah,
Like,
I think we touched base like, oh, here's like we went through and said, here's some assessments that we're going to do. So we had like 5 assessments
right.
that we knew we were going to walk
exactly. Our
through, and then that
basis
was it. Yeah.
And
So-
then we did the same thing when we came here, and we just like kept like grabbing people. Hey, you come over here. Like what's going on? Turn the camera on. Next thing we know.
my favorite. We need to follow up with that soccer player and see how she's.
Oh
doing.
yeah, actually we should.
So if you haven't watched it, we have this brilliant video with a girl that
One of Cressy's trainers.
Yep, one of Cressy's
Yeah.
trainers. She's a competitive soccer player, and basically had to quit playing soccer because she would
The whiplash.
the whiplash, but it gotten to the point that not even the whiplash was having an effect anymore. She was just
Totally.
she was getting concussion. Was it concussion?
Well, no, she was getting migraines
Yes.
because she enough headers with the ball, and then her musculature like all went just totally out of whack.
Yep.
And we're like, this is coming from your neck. And I mean, you see the beginning and after shots of when we took her and when we ended, and it's like her posture's like this, right? And then it's completely stacked up at the ends.
Yep.
That was a cool video.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites, just because it was so dramatic, and like I think she was like blacking out after like 45 minutes of playing, just because the blood flow restrictions. Like that's why she'd actually quit playing, is because she was
Dizzy.
She was
blacking
she
out,
basically
yeah.
was blacking out while playing, but because there was all these neck issues, and we went through the upper thoracic repatterning the diaphragm, and just
The
huge
boomstick
impact.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hit boomstick into the traps, a bunch of our vice work. And so, yeah, if you haven't checked that out, find it on my YouTube. Great video. We
Great.
walked through.
That was the video that we actually shot like 20 minutes of it and realized we weren't recording.
Oh, yes, it was.
I had to go back.
So we had to shoot a summary.
Yeah, we had to shoot something because we like fixed all of her stuff, right?
Yep.
And then we walk, and we're like, oh man,
Camera
how
stopped.
did we do that? Because it was actually, I think, like 40 minutes again, right? And I
Yep.
think we cut it down to like 20 minutes because we were like, oh shoot, yeah, we forgot to record that. So
Brilliant move.
that was a lot of
Yep.
fun. Yeah, we gotta find more people like that. Next time you're out here, or next time I'm out there, we gotta just like find some people who've got problems and like keep doing that, because I think that really helps people see the thought process, behind like how would you tackle problems.
It's a case study. Case studies are always really the thought process, the tools, the approach that you use, all really cool stuff. So
Yeah, and it's fun too.
Yeah.
Actively change. As a matter of fact, that's actually what we're doing now, right? So I'm following this model, and we're taking our elite ambassadors, right, and we're meeting up with them, whether it's a CrossFitter or a strongman or whoever, right? We just had one of our American Ninja Warriors up here, and same thing. I was like, "What's your problem?" Right? Turn on camera, and then we filmed an awesome ankle foot repatterning sort of sequence, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to go to all of our elite athletes and go, "What you got working?" As a matter of fact, we shot another one that's like mid back rounding in max squat, right? It's such a common problem. And I showed, all the activation problems, all the bracing issues, walked it through an active mobilization, put it back in, put her back under the bar, right? And, that sort of stuff I think really helps people see A to Z, It's like, I got this problem. Here's literally 10 minutes of work. Boom, now my lats fire, my diaphragm fires. Oh, look, I can get under the bar, actually stabilize, right? Go through your max squat, fixed. And I think that's the message. That's what it's got to be.
Now you just touched on ankles and feet, which happens to be the presentation I just gave, which was a lot of fun. But do you want to talk about Topo shoes at all?
Oh, sure, yeah. So one of the other unique things, and I got to get you a pair of these because with your barefootness, you would actually like these. Although in the winter you never seem to get cold, so maybe you never need to wear shoes.
Gonna find out this winter. So
what was that?
Gonna find out this winter.
You're right. We are the educational arm of a shoe company called Topo Athletic. It was founded by Tony Post, who is the CEO of Vibram and the creator of the Five Fingers. And they went and created a new company just a couple years ago. It's based here in Boston. And their whole premise is wide toe box, no junk in the shoe, right? No postings and supports and all this stuff, right? So essentially to allow for barefoot-like mechanics, but, with some protection, with some padding, with it's kind of like they call it minimalist, right? Not just a strip of rubber, but all the mechanics in the shoe still allow for kind of natural foot mechanics, spreading of the foot, activation of big toe, those essential things. And athletes have loved them. They're ultra lightweight. People should check them out. It's a really cool company.
Well, that's
we have a whole running program that lives on their site.
Honestly, every powerlifter could probably benefit from a wider toe box.
Yeah.
I mean, for so long, lifters cram themselves into these Chuck Taylors, and the first thing that would go out on a Chuck is the sides, right? Because people's feet are
blow them out.
Yeah. So it's been a need for, and that's something that I'm always looking for is a wider toed shoe, and so I think that's very cool.
Yeah, and that was basically the topic. So our fundamental approach is really simple. We look at two things first before we start going like joint by joint, but we always start and assess breathing in the core. Like you've got to start here. So it doesn't matter whether it's a hand issue, knee issue, whatever. We start here. Look at this. Next we go to the foot. How are we rooting?
Yeah.
Even if it's benching, if you're banging on one side, start here. Go to the feet. A lot of times you can correct that stuff because it is that power transfer, and we're losing, and we've got some softness, and now we're kicking out on one side. It's not the lat engagement or what other people think sometimes.
Right.
So that's like our two primary focuses. Then we can go to above and below. Whatever joint it is after that, as far as like looking for restrictions, other issues. But the foot is that wide toe box, and being able to spread and grab the ground is just absolutely essential. And then we've also lost basically because of, not having contact with, an unstable ground. I've got my hand here and I'm moving my fingers around, but inside my hand, all this is moving separately. And people's feet are locked up. So they've been crammed into these narrow shoes, all the individual action of those, and we've got a lot of methods we work on that we use. We got a lot of cueing methods and also methods for fixing and getting the feet opened up and moving well, but it has a huge impact. But yeah, you've definitely got to be driving with that big toe or off to the left of it. Reaching all the way out with along that metatarsal line is also, a lot of people don't understand the value of that and what that means to be able to spread and grab all the way through that as well, and the impact that has on all athletics, any ground-based athletics, where
anything where your foot's on the ground,
running, throwing, like any transfer of power where you're connected to the ground through the foot starts there. So it's one of my pet things right now, but it's just
I think that's
incredibly
one of the
important.
most critical things.
It is.
And not well understood, not talked about. You have a whole industry, as a matter of fact, that's all about shoving crap into the shoe, right? So that to brace for stuff, right? So you're having a starting place with people where they don't think about this at all. They don't even realize that, man, if your big toe doesn't fire, right, your arch doesn't fire correctly, you can't fire your glute correctly.
Exactly.
You
like I can
literally
look at your feet, and we do when we do client assessments and reviews, which we have this afternoon, don't we?
Yep.
So our coaching staff sitting down and walking through that. If we've got questions on stuff, we will make people film the video of them squatting, deadlifting without shoes on, because then we can actually see what's going on. Like, oh, I know the glutes aren't firing based on what I see there, or I know this is happening based on what's happening in the foot. So it's really
that's
cool.
the tendency, right? Everybody, we all know glutes are critical, right? Like clearly. But people's tendency is to go straight to the glute and be like, oh, that's your problem, right? You got to do some clamshells,
got to do some hip thrusters.
I'm like,
but it doesn't, until you connect it to the ground, it'll never work.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yep, it'll never
and
work.
even if you isolate it, you can have glutes of steel, right?
You can build these big, massive glutes, just big hiney, right? But the big hiney doesn't do anything for you.
Exactly. And that concept, I think, is one that we just have to keep pounding home for people, right? Because, I don't think it's well understood. I don't think it's talked about enough, right? I think people like to shy away from the foot because it's like mysterious to them. Like too many things going on. So like, I can talk about the hips. That's pretty simple. But now you're talking about these other things. We got to simplify it and make it, really clear these connections. And that's why I love, all the stuff you've been doing with foot. And we talked when we were up there about some of that, that left-right sort of assumptions that people make, about where the problem's coming from. And a lot of times, it's your freaking feet, you know?
And a lot of times you can actually just fix it by how you move the feet. So it's not necessarily that the foot is a problem, but your control of the foot and your conscious action of what you do with it can actually fix the problem. So,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the fascial tensioning idea, right? What is that? You're fascial tensioning on the ground. Big toe activation. Same thing we apply when crushing the balls in the hand, right? Grip, shoulder packing muscles. Well, feet, hips, core, same idea. You need both ends of that, your connection points. Hands are connection points, feet are connection points. If both work really well and they talk to the center line, guess what? You're going to be able to create power much more reliably than if they're not,
Absolutely.
I really like the idea of that shoe company that you talked about, because if you're in these huge padded shoes that are stuffed with support, your default is to not be using the musculature of your foot.
You can't even feel it.
Exactly.
And it's all muted.
Yeah, and I also like the idea of minimalist over barefoot, because people will make the argument that we have these minimalist shoes because people evolved with bare feet and stuff, but they also didn't evolve walking on concrete all day. And if you're doing that, it's going to get very hard on your feet. So that little bit of support, but still allowing your foot to work like a foot in a wide toe box and a flat shoe, is tremendous.
Yeah, go try walking on hot concrete or hot asphalt.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you're going to burn yourself.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, right, that you even say that, because the fundamental failure actually comes down to how you were raised, right? Because if you take Aboriginal people in Australia, they can walk across 130-degree sand with no problem completely barefoot, right? Because they've been doing it their entire freaking life, right? You take a bunch of the Kenyan ultra runners, all these guys, right? They ran barefoot forever since they were kids. Guess what? Their feet are going to be able to do something that taking a 30-year-old dude, right, who's been stuck in shoes, his feet are not. Now, he might be able to get there, but that's not like a 1-month program. Right. We're talking years. Toughening the feet, using the feet, learning how to, and then barefoot, has got a great place, but we've just hobbled our feet.
But yeah, that's a lot of work, and
tons of work
to get the value of what you need out of it, right?
Right. And you saw this with Barefoot Running, the Barefoot Running movement, right? In theory and in principle, that all made a lot of sense. Hey, look at the Tarahumara, they can run barefoot, hundreds of miles through these canyons. Look at all these native people, right? What was the key factor they were missing? They did it their whole lives, right? And they have all these people who were running, 100 miles a week, and then they just took off their shoes. And then they wondered why everything fell apart, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's because they're weak as hell,
What's that?
You have a good anecdote about that sort of thing, don't you?
You'll have to refresh me on it.
Just as far as feet adaptation, mountains and stuff, being barefoot for a long time.
Oh yeah. The when I was a when I was a kid, as you know, anybody
It was
knows
a
my
wee lad.
backstory, a wee lad. I lived in the mountains and ran around with no shoes all the time, but my feet. I
Right.
remember just running down gravel roads and nothing bothered me, and it's certainly not the case now. Although a lot of people still say when they see me running around here in the gym and other stuff, and that my feet are much tougher than anybody else's. But when I compare myself to where I was when I actually that was the environment I grew up, still hugely, vastly different.
That is a great example of that. Exactly. In the environment that you grew up, right? And kids' environments these days are not that. They're not nature.
Exactly.
And we're weak because of it.
Yes. In so many ways.
In a nutshell.
We could take that statement and probably write a few books on that, Brad. So.
And we probably should if we had any time.
More caffeine would be needed for that.
I was going to say, I'm surprised I've done as well as I have. This anybody listening, this marks my first non-caffeinated podcast. Did not happen by with intent. It was more of an accident in planning and prepping for this morning. But I actually didn't fall asleep, so
you will after this. I know you will.
Straight to the couch.
They've already said a big nap is definitely probably in my future.
Lunch, pass
Yeah.
out. That's going to be what happens
first.
in that order.
So
Well,
Yeah.
I think we're about running up on time here, Brad. Where can our listeners reach out to? Where can they find some of the information you're putting out? Where can they find some of your products that you're offering?
Yeah, thank you.
you
So
can find a lot of the
two
products on,
places. One, on your guys' site,
KabukiStrength.com.
right?
Yeah. Thanks.
I was gonna let him say it,
Thanks,
but-
Brandon.
One on your guys' site. You've got everything. We've got a lot of our collaborative work up there on YouTube, but then also on Acumobility.com. 1C. For some reason, everybody else spells Acumobility with 2 C's, but no, it's acumobility.com. And we're just now really starting to put out tons of high-level content on our blog. We were so busy leading up to now, but now we're making a dedicated effort. So tons of great content coming out. We're going to have that entire certification sort of portal/course coming out next year. So check us out. You can follow us on social media as well, Acumobility.
And I'm sure keep a lookout on more collaboration work between Acumobility and Kabuki Strength.
Definitely.
I know that we will be continuing our efforts to work together and try to change the industry.
That's the goal.
Yep.
Change the world.
World Domination Team checking in.
World domination.
Signing
That was
out.
the other thing that happened. when
Oh,
we
I
got down
remember
there.
that. Yes. Okay. Quick story. So
Quick story.
we'll sign out after this.
Okay.
But Brad and I think we were out for lunch, and I mentioned that I call our team here at Kabuki Strength Team World Domination, and usually when we hire somebody new, we welcome them to Team World Domination, usually with a shot of whiskey as well. But Brad shared his morning entry into his office. You want to share that, Brad?
Yeah, literally every time I walk into the office, I go to our team. I'm like, "How's everything going? All right, world domination? Yep, world domination." Right? And that's how we start every day. Whenever they ask how a meeting went, world domination. Yep.
So it's a pretty.
We thought that was hilarious.
Pretty damn similar approach here. Yep.
Team world domination, and what we mean by that is really spreading this message and getting out to the world, because everybody needs this stuff. So
exactly.
World domination.
That's why we have the same motto. We want to change the world. We want to have people live better through strength, and that's
seriously, not as just a line of bull, or marketing gimmick. It's like we didn't have to do this. We're doing it because we really want to make a difference, and that's the whole goal.
So that's why we love working with you guys. So that's it. We are actually signing out. That was worth the story.
That was worth the story.
Yep.